Yeah.
All right. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Yo, what is up, y'all? Welcome back to the Father Built Podcast. This podcast is all about building up fathers in holiness, healthiness, and happiness, aiming to give fathers the tools to build their house of legacy. My name is Bobby Peacock, and I am your host. Now, today, uh, I have another special guest with me on the podcast. This guest he's in my inner three. That's like some of the closest people to me. He's an accountability partner for me, one of my best friends. He's an actual pastor, also a youth pastor. He is a husband, a father, a girl dad. Welcome to the podcast, Zach McConnell. Also, Zach, I do have something special
Oh, snap. I'm not prepared for this.
just for this podcast. I will
Yes.
I will rock my cowboy hat just for you.
Bobby Peacock. What? You are the podcast host of the century. You know how to make people feel welcome. Oh my goodness. And yes, if we need to dive in a little bit to your intro here. When we first met, and we were just trying to figure out our friendship.
Yes.
We were talking about my role as a church, and you wanted to talk to my lead pastor. And what was the phrase that you told me?
Yeah, I think it was like something along like somewhere along the lines that you pastors are not actual pastors, and I want to talk to the actual
The real pastor.
the real pastor.
And if you could give the most visible eye roll on a podcast, it was just eyes beneath the back of my brain. But I'm going to take over your podcast.
Yeah,
My
you go
little
ahead.
surprise for a second. And I got to tell you, hey, I'm a follower of your podcast.
Oh,
I
man.
listen to it. And I would shoot straight if this was like, it's okay. This is an adorable project. No, man. You sell yourself short.
Yeah.
This is an amazing podcast.
Oh,
This is
man.
an amazing content. And I like the different people that you've been bringing on here. Different perspectives to fatherhood,
Yeah.
different ideals, and even posture where they're at. I'm telling you, man, when you hit 1 million subscribers and Spotify is knocking at your door, don't forget peasants like me
Oh,
who'll be
yeah.
like, hey, remember when I was your first for you guest? And you're like, Zach McConnell, who? I know what's happening
Okay,
here.
first of all, thank you for
Yeah.
those very, 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 very kind words, man. It's been an honor, and it's crazy. Like when I go out in public and stuff, and like there's young men that are like, "Man, I listened to your podcast, dude, and I
Whoa.
appreciate it." Or like, "Oh, dude, I heard you have a podcast, and what's it about?" And so it's been awesome, man. It's been cool to see what God has been doing. Not just in my life through this podcast, but like in other people's lives too. But enough about me. So
Let's talk more about me.
yeah, let's talk about you. So obviously I gave you that big elaborate intro. I forgot to say that you're also a CrossFitter, so
yeah,
a
that's important.
CrossFit athlete. But like, give me like the 2-minute version of who Zach McConnell is, man.
Zach McConnell's an individual that didn't grow up in a Christian home, didn't really understand faith very well, got invited to an event called Dodgeball and Donuts.
Okay.
That's how I was introduced to youth group.
Yep.
Realized that I was pretty far from God and I needed a savior.
Yeah.
I found God in June of 2006, but I also struggle with the idea of like, how could God use somebody like me who has a learning disability? Reading and writing is a struggle. And then a year later, he called me into ministry, and I was like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And now we fast forward here, being faithful to God, being transformed by his presence.
Yeah.
I've landed myself here in Sioux Falls as a youth pastor. I've been a youth pastor. I'm coming up on my 13th year.
Wow.
I have a wife. Her name's Amanda, and I've got 2 children. They're both redheads.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and just rip the Band-Aid. They ginger snap
They
all the
ginger-
time.
yeah.
Like, you've experienced it too, where
Yes.
you're just like, if they step outside, they get overwhelmed and hot so fast they literally just catch on fire. So that's my children are adorable. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying. That's if my wife's watching, they're the best children that could ever exist.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Dude, I feel like your youngest daughter, like I'm slowly starting to be her best friend.
Oh yeah. Oh, she is like. So my youngest, her name's Elena. She is the interactive extrovert of them
Yep.
all. She will talk to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Chloe, on the other hand, my oldest,
Yeah.
she don't care.
Yeah.
Like I walk into the house, Elena's hugging me. Chloe's like, yeah, but Paw Patrol's on. So I feel like fathers could relate to that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And so, like, when it comes to fatherhood, like, what are some important things to you?
You know, when you wrap yourself around this question, immediately what I think about, you're never really prepared for fatherhood.
Mm,
I distinctly remember, like, my wife giving birth to my oldest daughter.
yeah.
And just like, I'm holding this thing, but I've held lots of babies before,
Yeah.
like friends and neighbors and
Yep.
cousins. And it's just like, but this is our baby now.
Yep.
And then they're like, okay, you guys are cleared to go. Here, put her in a car seat and
Yeah.
you go home. And I remember coming home and like, now what? There is no instruction manual to
Yeah.
fatherhood.
Mhm.
So it is such a broad yet complex conversation.
Yeah.
For me, how do I best define fatherhood? In my personal conviction, it's a man that seeks after God and pours those attributes back into their daughter. As if my heavenly Father has loved me, I have the opportunity to love on my daughters, to love on my kids. And that's what we get to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
Because our kids do make mistakes, but you still love them unconditionally. You may want to whip them by their hair, but
Yeah. Yeah. I like, for me, when I came like from the hospital, I remember like holding my son Bo for the first time. And it's like God just kind of gave me like this sense of peace.
yeah.
And also remember like still having that sense of feeling once we left the hospital of like, okay, God, like, I'm stepping into fatherhood. I don't know what's gonna happen, but like you're in control. And like it's crazy because there is no manual.
Let's talk about the craziness of this.
Yeah.
When a 15, 16, 17-year-old wants to start driving a car, they have to go through driver's ed. They
Yep.
have to get a driver's license. They got to pass a test.
Yeah.
When you go to the hospital to become a father, there is no test. There's no like conversation like, here's some key factors. There's no manual. It's like, best of luck.
Yeah.
Don't forget the diapers. And it's horrifying, that feeling of like, you want to be the best father you can be.
Yep.
And yet you're going to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, I have failed many times
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're the shining example. You're the
No.
podcast host of the Father Built podcast. Like, you've got just no issues, no missteps in fatherhood at all.
That is absolutely no. I am far from perfect. But like my question to you is like, how do you deal with failure as a father?
Ooh. Big part of me that instantly comes up
Yeah.
is that I'm going to always fail. And I'm so thankful that I have a heavenly Father that gives me grace.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I have a wife that gives me grace for when I do fail.
Yeah.
If we come into this joking aside and saying
Yep.
we're never going to fail, we have failed already
Yep.
by saying
100%.
that. We need to have that safety net of failure, but we need to make sure that we have people in our lives, accountability,
Yep.
that hold us into what a godly father looks like.
Yeah.
What does it look like to raise your children under a godly home? What does it look like to care for them? And when you make mistakes, you have people calling you out to come back and say, God, I need you. I need you more I need your supernatural strength.
Yeah.
I need patience. I need guidance. I need wisdom
Yeah.
in this. I think that's a conversation itself, is what does it look like to surround yourself with both people who are fathers, who are experienced, those who are in the trenches with you as a new father, and then those who are on the outside that know you personally, that support you.
Yeah.
That is so important and key. And I think we as men, this is a bold one. I think we as men, we want to braveheart this thing and say like, we've got this, here we go.
Yep.
And I need to see more examples of fathers that say, I actually need more godly men in my life to help me be the best father I can be.
Yeah.
And we miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like so often as fathers, or just like in men in general, I'm seeing this common theme, especially when I have guests on, is that there's just like, we want to braveheart it, or we want to do it alone. Like I call it the Batman. Like, you ever seen Lego Batman?
Have I ever seen Lego Batman? Am I not a dude in America?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Please.
But like Lego Batman, he's just like, I'm alone. I'm gonna do it all by myself, kind of thing. And I feel like there's so many men that are out there that are like, yo, like, there is no manual, so I'm just not gonna ask for directions, and I'm gonna do it myself, and then they end up failing. Where, like, I've always said it this way. You know how we say it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Yeah.
So I say it takes a village to raise a marriage, but also to raise a healthy father as well.
Okay, so this sounds like a very simple concept, but now
Yeah.
I'm going to flip the podcast back to you.
Okay.
Why do we do that? Why do we as men just naturally go, I'd much rather do this on my own
Yeah.
than to be vulnerable and
Yep.
allow ourselves to be transparent and have people invest in our... Why do we do that?
Yeah. Would you say, I'm gonna flip it back to you?
We're going to tennis match
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna test it. Yeah. As a man, do you think it's difficult to be vulnerable?
That's the same question I just asked you.
But I'm asking you.
Oh, gosh. Now, I see, I was hoping to hijack this
Just
podcast.
just yes or no. Just yes or no.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And if I can elaborate on that,
Yeah.
like 1,000% why it's difficult is, I think we have a natural tendency to say, well, they've got it.
Yep.
We play the comparison game.
I was just about to say that.
We look at it, somebody, oh, they've got it figured out, so I just got to figure it out.
Yep.
We try to take parenthood, fatherhood, like an IKEA furniture instruction. We
Yeah.
don't need the instructions.
Yep.
I'll just build the furniture myself.
Yep.
And then it's just not as right, not as perfect.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's doable.
Yep.
Our kids deserve so much more than just okay.
Yeah.
They need the best of the best.
Yeah.
They need people around us to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put it this way, since you asked me that question, I spun it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I think it was not last winter, but the winter before, where we had all of that snow here in South Dakota.
Ugh.
It was the worst, right?
Yeah.
And you see my driveway. It's a 2-car driveway,
Yeah,
and
yep,
it's pretty big. And I remember one day it just dumped snow completely, just like, and I go outside, and my neighbor, who is 2 houses down, he's out there, headphones in with a snowblower.
Ugh.
And I'm like, yo, that's what I want. I want that snowblower. And so what God hit me right then and there, and he's all like, you don't know the sacrifices that it took for him to get that snowblower. You don't know what he had to do to get that snowblower. And so, like, for us, it's so easy for us to get caught up in that comparison, where it's just like, oh, like, I want to be that kind of father,
That is a great analogy.
but I don't know the sacrifice that father had to do,
Mm-hmm.
or that husband had to do to get where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
And so then all of a sudden we're like, especially like if you don't know the Lord, then you're just trying to figure out like, yo, like, what do I have to do? Because like I have believers and non-believers that listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And so then it's just like, for me, I just like, I don't know how you can be a father and not know Jesus or not know the Lord.
I mean, let's take this conversation as a piece. Like, my heart grieves over that
Yeah.
because fatherhood just by itself is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I can't do this alone,
Mhm.
and I can't do this without a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
So we can fairy dust this thing and saying, like, life with Jesus is amazing. Life with Jesus is amazing. Life with Jesus is difficult.
Yep.
It adds a layer of obedience.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I am a different and a better man because I have a relationship with Jesus, and I get to instill that in my family.
Yeah.
It's not always the easiest.
Yep.
And even when we just talk about simple things about, like, let's pray before bedtime,
Mhm.
my girls are squirming. Like, they don't fully comprehend yet, like,
Yep.
why we do these things.
Yeah.
We just do it because we do it. But I'm hoping over time, and my prayer for them specifically, is they know that Jesus cares deeply for them,
Yeah.
and that just as the Father has loved you, I love you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is a huge responsibility. And that's why I need people like Bobby Peacock in my life.
Yeah.
That's why we need those accountabilities. Those are pivotal. those are foundational.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to use a language, it is our opportunity, if not responsibility, to help inspire godly fathers in every home across America.
Yeah.
And that just requires things like this.
Yeah.
Our podcast, our conversations, just being transparent, being open, saying this is the difficult things that are happening in my world. These are the difficult things that have been happening, and I need just an ear to help.
Yeah.
Because there is no perfect humanly father here.
No.
We all
Yeah.
fall short.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important to have that community and say, you know what, like, hey, I just bought furniture from IKEA. I need my boys to help me out.
Yeah.
Like I remember I had a friend who just got a TV, and he called me up and he's like, hey man, I'm gonna feed you, but can you come over and help me put up this TV?
Yep.
And it was like, for me, it was like, no questions asked. Absolutely.
Easy.
And part of that was, he's in my 12 homies, but he's the guy that I call at like 3:00 at night if I need to like bury a body or something.
Oh, good. Go ahead and confess that on the public podcast.
Which
Good.
will never happen. But
Good idea.
he's that type of friend. Mm-hmm. He's my most dangerous friend. You've met him, Travis.
Yeah, I sure have.
Yes. But like, I think it's just that important of like, because like when I went to help him set up that TV, it was like we were joking, we were having fun, and it was less about like getting the TV set up and more about the camaraderie of hanging out and seeing him with his family and stuff. And so
he's the most dangerous friend that doesn't know how to set up a TV.
He does, but this was like a 75-inch TV, bro.
Oh, that's a whole different story. Never mind.
Yeah, it was a big TV, man.
I thought we were talking about like, I don't know how to turn it on or plug in the Blu-ray.
No. He's very much tech driven. But yeah. So like I had a question earlier that kind of came to my mind is like, can you imagine doing fatherhood without God? Like, how would that look like for you? I know it's kind of, I'm asking you a little bit of a sacrilegious question because you're a pastor. And so.
I'm struggling because I would lack patience. I would lack grace when my kids mess up.
Yeah.
I would have no convictions then of allowing other people to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
I would lack even guidance of what it means to be a man. Even before I even talk about the conversation of fatherhood, I would lack, how do I actually do this? I would just, I guess the phrase I would use, I just cowboy up. I'll just figure it out as we go. And then we just have broken people.
Yep.
I wouldn't give permission for other people to invest in my kids. I think that's a big part too. It's like, parenting, it does take a village.
Yeah.
And we have to allow other people to come around and actually support us.
Yeah.
But also support our kids. One of the things about my oldest daughter, her name is Chloe.
Yep.
She actually is autistic. And so she does struggle with some behavior, cognitive, just engaging things. But there are some incredible family members that we've deemed, they're not biological, but we've deemed them uncles and aunts that are foundational to Chloe and foundational to Elena, and just saying yes to that. I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't a Christian, really, because I feel like I would be too egotistic about who can be involved in my kids' lives. For me, it would be like, I'm good. But it's important for us to not only allow other people, but also teaching them as well. Again, the opportunity and responsibility, because some of them are not even fathers yet. They're the fun uncle. But I'm telling you, the moment that those individuals become dads, because I see it when they become dads, they're going to be amazing dads. And they get to be amazing uncles in this moment. So I'm not even sure if I answered your question.
No, that's great, because I think you used a really good word, which is permission. And allowing people to not only have permission to speak into your life as a man, as a husband, as a father, but also giving them permission to speak into your kid's life. But there's also an opposite as well of giving. There are some people that you cannot allow to have that permission. Like for example, if I'm
Let's get the dirty names out. Go ahead. Name it all out.
I'm
Give
not-
me who are the people that are no go, no fly zone.
Listen,
Welcome to the Zach McConnell podcast, where we just get all of the dirty laundry out. I've got a special guest. His name is Bobby Peacock. Bobby,
that's
what
hilarious.
frustrates you?
Yeah, no, I. Thanks for hijacking my podcast. Oh man, this is great. I think, like, for example, like what okay, here's a prime example. I'm gonna put someone on blast. This is gonna be great.
Gosh, I was kidding about this.
No, I'm just gonna tell you the story. So, my old roommate, I was hanging out with him Saturday night after I left your house or whatever, and he decides, him and his girlfriend, they had a little some to drink or whatever, and so I had to bring him to like an after party or something like that. And his girlfriend, she is an absolute sweetheart. Like, just super nice, very hospitable. She sits in my back seat, and then she decides to sit in my son's booster seat. Yeah, I'm just like, why? and then she's like, yo, this booster seat is sliding all over the place. Mine, like, me knowing she doesn't have her seatbelt on.
And so sitting in a booster seat,
and she's in my son's booster seat, and she's a little tipsy, and so she's all like, "Hey, you need to get a better booster seat for your son." And the whole time she said it like 5 times, and I'm just driving, didn't say a single word. We got a car, and she got even more serious, and I look at her and I say, "Hey, listen, I love you, and you're an amazing person, and I appreciate you." Caring about my son in that manner. And I just look at her and I'm like, but you didn't have your seatbelt on the whole time we were driving. And so I tell that story because I'm not going to say her name, but just know I love you. You're a great woman. I appreciate you. She has done wonders in my old roommate's life. And so anyways, but I say all of that because there's some people who think that they have permission to speak into your life, but you never granted them that. And like for me, like for example, when I go shopping with my son, we act like fools. If someone ever came up to me and said, "Hey, you're not setting a good example," listen, I'm gonna have words for you.
Yeah.
But I already look intimidating, so like not a lot of people come up to me when me and my son go grocery shopping.
That is not the case for Zach McConnell over here. They look at me and say, "Do you know you live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota? You're wearing a cowboy hat, boy? Or son?"
Son, yeah, ooh, yeah. Yeah, and so that's why I think you have to be careful with who you allow permission to speak into your life, and especially your kid's life. Because like I even think about like the school system. Like, if I had an opportunity, I would homeschool my son, because there are some teachers that will have permission to speak into my son's life because they work for the school system, that I wouldn't give them permission to speak into my son's life.
Yeah, and well, let's hit on this topic because I think sometimes in our grand scheme of things, if we're going to talk about just the physical, mental, spiritual levels, we tend to forget that we too have a responsibility to teach our children. So as a youth pastor, I'm going to hit some dangerous water.
Let's get it.
We rely on the church to teach on the spiritual matters for our children. And really, that should actually begin in the home.
Yes.
That should really begin with your kids, and you're teaching them foundation. Instead, what happens is we do kind of the checklist thing. Okay, they went to school, they're learning that, check, done. They went to church, they're learning about spiritual things, check, done. Did they go to PE class, check, physical, done. Guess what? We'll watch another video series on Netflix, and that's how I'm spending time with my kids. My goal is just to spend time. And really, we're supposed to be teaching them.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be on top of that, and that takes work. I am so thankful for my wife that even tackles that, and I'm blessed that I have those opportunities that she engages. It's a tango for us to teach that well, and I am concerned when we make the assumption that other people are teaching, and in fact, we're the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure we're instilling boundaries, we're building a foundation so that when they grow and they are developed and they are cognitive and they recognize what is right and wrong. It's because of those parameters and those
Yeah.
foundations that you have built as a father, that they have a solid foundation to springboard into something amazing. And
Yeah.
that's because you've spent time building that.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants a springboard that's missing a bunch of springs. Those
Yep.
springs take time to put that together.
Yep.
I'd much rather spend the time to be able to own that responsibility, but give permission and invite others to help with that process. Come help me build this trampoline
Yeah.
so that we can support this child. We
Yeah.
need good, godly, faithful people in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you deal with like, cause like I'm kind of trying to figure out from like a perspective of a non-Christian as well, which I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah, I got it. I understand.
they everybody who watches this podcast knows that like this podcast is, you know, has a biblical filter, a biblical foundation, a biblical worldview, a
Yep.
biblical lens. But like, how do you deal with, well, because you love the Lord, and you're a believer, like, but you're also a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you, especially as a pastor,
Oh, yeah.
and like I can't go to church, or I can't trust Christians because they're hypocrites.
I completely understand how they feel. And I know we're not supposed to say that as pastors. Like, I totally get it and I understand it. I do. You turn on the news, you just look on social media,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, if this is what Christianity's about, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I was in that boat too.
Yeah. Mm.
I mourn over that, and I
Yeah.
mourn that we say one thing and we do another thing. And for us Christians, we failed.
Yeah.
We've missed the boat a lot of times, and yes, we fall short. I got that. I understand that.
Yep.
But the greatest commandment is to love God and love others. Is
Mm-hmm.
love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we struggle to do any of that.
Yeah.
And so for those that are on the podcast that are listening, that are so close to turning off and saying, like, you got a pastor on here and he's just talking about all godly things, and
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the church. I got to tell you that I sympathize with you.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that feeling. Like, I don't need Jesus in my life to be able to be a good father. And my response to that is like, but you have no idea
Yeah.
what it means to be walking with the creator of the universe that loves you and accepts you and cares for you and wants the best for you. And what happens when you have that relationship with God, it changes everything. It
Yeah.
changes the perspective. It changes even your filter, your mind, conversations and engagements. And this doesn't, for some, there's some Bible characters and even today conversations that it happens overnight. For me, it's been a lifetime journey of understanding and growing and being developed. But I mourn with those individuals that have felt hurt by Christians,
Yep.
have felt attacked by hypocrisy, I
Yeah.
would say.
Mhm.
We are the modern day Pharisees.
Yeah.
If we are not willing to be called out,
Yeah. Absolutely.
we need accountability.
Yep.
Wow, we really went into a dark subject here.
No, man, this is us being real and raw. And I think which brings me into the next topic of like that you wanted to talk about, but like the difference between being a man and a man of God.
Yeah.
Because like a couple like a recent podcast that came out, I was talking with someone about like and I don't want to make this podcast political, but we were talking about the LGBTQ plus stuff, and we got into a little bit of a like the moral compass, and I told them about our conversations where I said I have an accountability partner who literally asked me, "Hey, when's the last time you had sex?
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you had porn?" This is my accountability partner,
Hi.
Zach McConnell.
I'm here.
And we've had deep conversations about those things, about things that I've done where I'm like, I'm not sure about this, and you're like, well, were you convicted? Okay, cool. Like we recently, I'm not gonna go into details, but last week we had that conversation.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so if you can help some of our guests, like, you know, answer the question of like, what's the difference between being like a man and a man of God?
this has probably been like if this would be the biggest struggle of my life, it would have been this. What does it actually mean to be a man? And what does it mean to be a man of God? And I think we've got the ideas twisted around. When I think about being a man, what the world defines as is who's got the biggest muscles, who's got the most money, the most amount of stock, who's the most successful, who's got the biggest truck, who's got it all figured out. And even if we want to go down a cynical route, like how many women have I been with, and how irresistible am I? And what I've learned is that those are the individuals that probably feel the loneliest. Those are the individuals that feel like it could all go away in just a moment. But being a man of God is a whole different realm. It talks about being an influence, not for your immediate circles, but being an influence for those around you. Being a man of God is standing up for truth, but having the grace to get on your knees and to wipe the mess off the floor.
Yeah.
Being a man of God represents opportunities to engage with our community, a response to love Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, to love our neighbors as ourselves, to engage in these things. It has nothing to do about how much money's in your bank account. It has nothing to do with about how big your muscles are. And that was my problem. I had interpreted being a man being all of these earthly physical characteristics. You know how I would like to be someone like you. Just a massive intimidation.
We talked about this last week.
That's when I was thinking about definition, that's being a man.
Yeah.
That's not being a man.
No. So much more.
It goes so much deeper than this. And masculinity bestows masculinity, and we need people in our lives who we can be transparent.
Yep.
Who we could be honest and to help us grow closer to God.
Yeah.
We need manly men in our lives, godly, manly men who can call you out. We need godly men in our lives to help us walk through this thing called life.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be a man of God.
Yeah.
Is to say, I don't have it all together, but I don't need to.
Yep.
I need Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, man. You just went full on pastor mode, man.
Did I?
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I loved it. No, I 100% agree with you, man. Like, I think, like I said, it comes back to like a moral compass, and like, I'm out there trying to, find me a boo thing,
For other viewers out there that don't know what that means, a girl,
a woman, a mom, a wife, and I remember I like hanging out at the bars or whatever, and because you talked about like like who has the most bodies, right? And I was talking to these women, and somehow we got on a topic of, I wasn't trying to hit on them or anything, but just like that, and because they like, this is what they're like, you don't drink? I'm like, nah, I don't drink. Like, I've never been drunk, never do drugs, never been high or anything like that. And then they're like, wow, that's crazy. And then I think I just said, yeah, and it takes a lot to get these goods or something like that.
That's right.
Like, I think I said I don't take women home, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to save myself for marriage. And they were like, that is the sweetest thing.
Adorable.
Absolutely. And needless to say, in the culture that we live in, like, for the men that are out there that are like, that have some of the same struggles with me, of like, whether it's having a high sex drive or, there was a month where I was just like, man, I just, this is me being vulnerable, whatever. And I just had this like pent up energy, and, like, for me, it's important to have that accountability, but then also understand that, like, even though that can happen, like, you can go out there, but like, women truly love a man that has self-control, a man that can go to the bar and not take a woman home, like, because even though they're like, oh, I'm in my F around stage kind of thing, at the end of the day, you know, the term good guys like finish last or whatever.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, they're going to want someone like me instead of someone that has a body count of like 50.
And it's scary
Mm-hmm.
how desensitized we are to this.
Yeah.
That the idea that somebody like you exists,
Mm-hmm.
and that you just say, no, I'm not going to take a woman home.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe in this biblical truth of being a man of God and caring for the people around
Yep.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in a relationship. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If that works and that's what's going on here, but my fear to that story that you just shared, and I'm wondering if other people listening to this resonate. Like, that's cute, that's adorable. Oh, you're saving yourself. That's awesome. And for some, I bet you there's judgmental. Like, dude, you could have whoever you want. Live your life to the fullest now.
Yep.
Dude, have fun now, and then you can confess that to God later,
Yep.
and that you can ask for forgiveness, and God's gonna forgive you, and then you're gonna have a wife, and everything's great. But you have no idea of the train wreck
Yeah.
that you are, the collateral damage that
The
you're leaving.
baggage.
Absolutely, the pain that's gonna follow that. We blindly as men, we want to be Robin Hood, and we're just shooting arrows up in the air. Like, okay, here we go. I'm with this person because I'm being a man. And then when we finally find that person that we want to say yes to, those arrows landed somewhere.
Yep.
And they all landed at that individual.
Yep.
And then you've got to navigate that territory with your bride to be. And yet we pin this up again. What it means to be a man is like, what's my body count?
Yep.
We pin this up being a man about how can I live my life to the fullest?
Yep.
And
YOLO.
Yeah. And it's being a man of God is something so much more.
And the whole notion of doing now and asking for forgiveness later, like living that lifestyle, is like it is scary, because like the Bible talks about, and I'm paraphrasing this Bible verse, but just because you know Jesus or just because you know the Lord doesn't give you an excuse to keep sinning.
Yep.
And so like for me, that's why like to have a high moral standard, to understand that like people like, and like you talk about baggage, right? And like for me, it's like any conversation that I have with someone who I'm potentially interested in dating, I have to have the difficult conversation of my past, of my marriage, the things that I did in my marriage, and you know the good, the bad, the ugly, and then I have to share that with them, and then they have to accept that. Either accept that or say, "Oh, I'm not into that," because some people won't put up with some of the things that I've done in my past, and I don't fault them. And so because of that, because of what I've done in the past, I've lost out on things that God could have had for me, you know?
Yeah, and that speaks to your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
That speaks to like, okay, I've made some mistakes in my life, and I'm choosing God, which means being transparent.
Yep.
And what I appreciate about your story, and probably a majority of us that have gone through these stories together, like, you need to have people in your life that make sure you uphold to those promises of like, this is what I'm looking for, but most important, this is what I'm looking for in myself. This is what I need accountability with. Am I honoring the people I'm interacting with by being transparent in that? I would say by the time you say yes at the altar, they know everything about you.
Yep.
I sure have skeletons in my life too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And before I could say yes to my bride, before we became a married couple, years later becoming a parent, being a father, I had to confess everything to my wife. That was a standard that actually my accountability partner, I'll shout out, his name's Nathaniel. He is, if I could be 10% the man of God that he is, I would be 100% a better man.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much he inspires me. And I distinctly remember there were things in my life I was just not willing to talk about, but he knew everything.
Yep.
So he did not allow me to even propose to my now wife,
Yep.
until she knew everything about my life.
Yeah.
You know how scary that is?
Dude, for real.
Like, but I would have never, and I would fear to say this, I don't think she might ever know unless I had a godly man in my life to call me out
Yep.
and to say, you can't do this
Yep.
until you confess it all.
Yeah.
And that has made our marriage so much stronger
Yeah.
because of that. So,
Well, and it's crazy to think that there's so many people who are jumping into relationships
oh, yeah.
and they're not having those conversations. They get married. All of a sudden, those conversations start happening. Because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have any of those conversations. I didn't with my ex-wife. And, yeah, I didn't have any of those conversations. And then we got married. We got in our first argument. And then it was like immediately we need to get a divorce.
Can I make a side rabbit trail?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I talk about my first argument with my wife? It was on my
Absolutely.
honeymoon. I think there needs to be
So-
a poll.
So this was because you just told me about the argument. So this was your first marital argument.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
So that we
Yeah.
were on our honeymoon, and my wife was eating an apple, and we had a rental car, and we were driving to a location. I don't actually remember what the location was,
Mm-hmm.
but she ate the apple, and then she rolled down her window, and she was about to throw it out the window.
Yep.
Is it illegal to throw an apple out the window? Is that littering?
It's biodegradable.
Yeah, you and I are in different pages. You're throwing an apple out the window. You could hit a car.
That's true.
You could hit a squirrel.
Yeah. It's questionable if it's legal or not.
My wife was like that. We got into a full blown argument because of an apple core, and I still stand to this day like you shouldn't throw an apple core out the window. Just throw it away.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not sure why. I brought
So
that story up.
so that was the first fight.
That was
you
my
had
first marriage fight.
But you guys got over it, right?
No, we're still fighting to this day about it. Yes, of course we got over those, and we've had much more serious arguments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I knew everything about my wife coming into our marriage, and she knew everything about me.
Yep.
And now we're still learning more about ourselves as we've gone, because we are different people.
Yeah, seasons.
We're different people than we were when we first got married back in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Are we moving closer together, though? Every step that we take, every year, even when we made the step about being parents
Yep.
and choosing to be parents together, okay, we're going to be different people. We're going to have different parenting strategies.
Yeah.
That's going to require lots of conversations. Are you saying that we've never had an argument about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had lots of arguments about it.
Yeah.
But we've always come to the table. Actually, we have a rule. When we are angry, we're frustrated with each other, we never go to bed angry with each other.
That's good.
We at least have to have a conversation before we can say, are you good? I'm
Yeah.
good. And if we're not, we got to still have a conversation until we get to the part that we say we're good. We may not be totally satisfied or happy,
Yeah.
but at least we're at a cool level where it's like, let's go to bed. Those are awkward nights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so good.
You were talking about coming into a marriage, even kind of preparing for that fatherhood, about them knowing everything about you.
Yeah.
We've already hit the conversation about transparency. We don't want to be transparent because we're men.
Yep.
We've got it all figured out. Would you say it's true in your case, and seeing from other relationships, do we have it all figured out? Like, do we have that mentality that we don't need other people to help us build masculinity, bestowing masculinity here?
Yeah. So I would say this, in some circles that I run in, I have it more figured out than other people.
Yeah.
And a part of that is because I established my 12, like my ride or die homies. And so, like, from a world's perspective, there's a lot of people that look at me and they say, well, Bobby has it together compared to what I'm going through.
Yeah.
But part of that goes back to my relationship with the Lord, my 12, my accountability, my mentorship. All of that comes into play. Like, I'm not lone wolfing this. Sometimes I'm like trying to be Superman, but I have friends that make sure that I'm not Batman,
Boom.
Yeah, that's a bar. That's a
Hit
bar.
There we go.
So I think sometimes, like, and I'm not saying that like cocky, I'm saying it confidently. But like even compared to some of my, like for example, my most lethal friend, he has a nice house, a really really nice house.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. That
Okay.
we're humbled by our home.
And I remember the first time I walked in that house, I'm like, whoa. And so, like for me, when we talk about comparison, like I compare myself in a way of like, hey, this is where I want to get someday. Not like, oh, I'm going to cheat my way to get it. Like, cause he literally told me one day, he's like, man, like, cause he helps me out with like finances and stuff like that. And we haven't met for a while, but, I have two of my 12 that help me out on the financial end. And, he's like, anytime that you feel like you want to spend money on shoes, just drive past my house. Or like step in and just say, okay, this is what I can have if I'm smart. And so like, so I'm kind of like, when it comes to like having it all together, do I think I have it all together? No. I'm starting from like 1, but then there's some people that I know that are starting from like negative 30.
Yeah, but that's all the perspectives that we have as a man. Because from you, you don't have it all together, and you see people who you're inspired by that you want to move, and like if I could be the reflection of that, I would continue to growth. But there are people before you that look at Bobby Peacock and says he's amazing, and if I could be like Bobby, but we don't see that all the time.
Yeah.
I understand that feeling of like I'm always feeling like I'm playing in last place as being a man. I feel like I'm in last place, and everybody is just doing amazing. I see fathers that are amazing fathers. I'm like, I can never do that. I don't know how you do this. I look at peers, athletes that are amazing. I'm like, I can never do that. But then there are people that you don't see behind you that we have a opportunity to serve up and serve behind.
Exactly. That's so good.
Why we need. This is why we need Jesus.
Yeah.
This is why, like, this is, let's go full circle.
Yeah.
This is why we need Jesus in our lives, because you're always going to be in an endless game of comparison.
Yep, absolutely. And I look at it too of like, it's like being okay, a little bit okay with where you're at, but not content. Or maybe it's like being content with where you're at, but also acknowledging where you need to be. And pushing yourself to be where you need it. And that could be wrong, but like for me, I think sometimes as men, we always look at where we need to be, but then we forget to look at where we are and where we came from. And there's a mentor of mine who he has, and he challenged me to do this, and I got it all the way up to 50. He's like, think of 100 things that you are thankful for.
Oh yeah.
In this season of your life. And then read that like once or twice a year. Like when you're like, yo, like I'm down and out, like think about like where you're at.
Your mentor is really nice to you, because as a youth pastor, I give my student leaders specific challenges. And for one particular student in this past year, their big final challenge was write down 250 things that you were thankful for God. And like
250?
Yeah, 250. That they had a whole month to accomplish it.
A month?
And so they had a journal, and they would just carry it around school, work, home, and anything that would come into their mind. And you could tell the theological depthness from like, I'm so thankful for a church, and I'm so thankful for the youth group.
That's how it starts.
And then it's like, I'm thankful for carpet and air. But then, like near the end of this, you kind of start seeing some tangible thing. Like, I'm thankful I have a bed.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I do have a dad.
Yep.
I'm thankful that I have a mom.
Yeah.
And I'm as much as annoying my brothers or sisters are, I'm thankful for siblings.
Yeah.
Like, so you see the beginning, like, okay, we can pass. I usually just skim through that.
Yep.
The middle ground is like you're grasping at straws.
Yep.
But near the end, they got it.
Yeah.
So I am a terrible youth pastor, and I make
No,
them
you're
do
not.
horrible
No, you're
things
not.
like a list of 250. But
that's great.
yeah, well, yeah, that's for me, we need to be reminded of those things. And we need to be reminded that, again, there's a lot of blessings around us, even when we feel like we're down and out.
Yeah.
God has not forgotten you at all.
Yeah. Amen. And it's crazy because it goes from thankful from words to now you have sentences of what they're thankful for. I mean, I'm thankful for the color black because that's my whole wardrobe is black. So
yeah.
Oh, before we go, I forgot to ask this earlier. So what's up with the cowboy hat
Okay. So
and the boots?
and the boots.
I didn't wear my boots. I just put my cowboy hat on.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'm just actually thankful that you wear a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit about my story. When I was in high school, I wasn't sure what God was going to... No, at that point, I didn't really have a relationship with God at all. I thought I was going to do, like, a couple things in my life. I actually thought one of them was going to be in the film career. I really liked making movies. I had a stellar skill in Microsoft Movie Maker.
Wow.
I knew how to use Movie Maker really well. I really upped my game, and then I went to Sony Vegas. And I'm calling some old school stuff, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And then, but I was like, maybe God's calling me to be in the movies. But then I was also in the summer camps. I did a lot of summer camp. I'm a nerdy Eagle Scout.
Okay.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
And I had opportunities to work with horses. I've had opportunities in other camp venues that I've been a part of. And there was a part of me that's like, I want God, maybe I want to be a horse wrangler. That's actually my official job title I had.
Yeah.
So then when God called me into ministry in 2007, I was like, there's no way God could use somebody like me. I'd much rather just work with horses. I was also kind of afraid of my identity. Over the summer, I was a completely different person than I was during the school year. I never wore my Wrangler jeans. I never wore my hat during the school year because I didn't want people to know I was living two different lives. And what I've come to find out is like, God has called me to working with students.
Yeah.
And God has wonderfully and uniquely made me in the image of Him. And sometimes I was running from that identity to say, I don't want people to know that I'm a cowboy.
Yeah.
And even though I haven't worked on a horse ranch in for some time, that used to be my foundation.
Yeah.
And still is. It reminds me of the grit and the grind it takes to get things done. Because it takes grit and grind to get youth ministry done.
Yeah.
We need people to help guide this rising generation. And that's why I'm committed. I'm in my 13th year in youth ministry. So cowboy up. I'll wear a cowboy hat.
Yeah,
People will make fun of me. And also for your viewers, like, I'm very much bald. For the podcasters, you can't see it, but for the video, like, it's bad.
Yeah. I remember when we first met, you were still holding on to...
It was like the farewell tour, part 3.
Farewell tour of your hair.
I tried, and it was just receding, looking like Bozo the Clown. But thank you for your kind words, and that's why we need people like you.
Yeah.
So, way to go downhill with this podcast.
But the funny thing is, I only remember you as bald. I don't remember you with having hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you didn't have it that long when we met.
I guess not, no. It was we were just in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And I think it was in that time period. I'm like, all right, I got to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah.
I look uggo.
Yeah.
Uggo is ugly for the hip kids.
Okay,
there.
uggo.
Yeah.
That's the new one. All right. I got one more thing.
Okay, let's shoot for it.
So, how many times have
goodness.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Oh, totally. I know exactly. It deals with an island.
Yeah. Tell me.
How many times have I applied to a television show called Survivor? Okay. The answer is, it's a real number, 29 times.
I think you need to open up your horizon, like maybe Naked and Afraid.
No. Nobody wants to be like, oh, by the way, my youth pastor's on a TV show. Oh, what's a TV show? Naked and Afraid.
That would be great for you, Pastor Chronicles, bro.
I would be the poster child of that at that point if you don't look it up on Instagram. But I am. That's like youth ministry fail. I'm probably not employed anymore. It would be horrendous. And that's a no-go. But yes, I've applied to Survivor 29 times. I can name all the seasons. We just ended season 46 in September. Season 47 starting. I can name all the winners for you. But then I struggled to tell you the books of the Bibles in order. So, anywho,
wow,
we're all not perfect people.
Yeah,
and we just need grace.
Amen to that, man.
Are you gonna apply to a TV show? Price is Right, I would assume.
Price is Right? No, man.
Do you know what Price is Right is?
Dude, I'm not that much younger than you.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. You know,
Yes.
Bob Barker, not like Drew Carey.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
Yeah,
man, we're
I
going
know.
downhill with
I
this
know.
podcast.
I know. Old school. I was gonna be like, what was that shopping show way back in the day?
Market Spree.
Yeah,
Something like that.
dude, that used to be one of my favorite shows that was on TV back in the day.
No, we've got to come up with.
Well,
you
besides
run
like The Simpsons, but like there was just something, the energy of that show. Like I was like probably like 4 or 5. So
oh, people running in a market. That would be so awesome. No.
have you seen me and my son run in the market? Chill, dog.
You know, they just reinvented that, and they had. Now I just forgot her name.
Yeah, I hear it's not as good though.
My wife likes it.
Huh? I'll have to check it out.
Well, look, you got to come up with a better game show. What else are you applying to?
Okay, wait, hold on a second. You're asking me to come up with a better game
Then
show
that- come on,
when
like-
I can call out your top 10 movies.
How dare you? Oh, I'm Bobby Peacock. I can strong arm this podcast. No one's even listening to this podcast anymore. Now it's just us venting about stuff like this. You want to be a man of God? Then you better have an amazing top 10 movies list.
Your top 10 movies is somewhat a little bit questionable.
I'm hurt, and maybe part 2 of this podcast. If I know the viewers are clamoring for a part 2 of this junk now, we'll reveal the top 10. But you still haven't given me a TV show you're playing to.
Oh, I would say Impractical Jokers.
You can't apply to.
I know, but like that
It's
is
like saying, "Hey, I want to apply to be on Seinfeld."
no, because Seinfeld is like a narrative, and Impractical Jokers is like reality TV.
Okay, I'll give you that.
So, yeah,
This has gone downhill.
I got one.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is gonna make you laugh, Cops.
Oh my! Let's go down this rabbit trail for just a moment. Viewers, listeners, please stay on for just a little bit longer. Just stick with us. Why does Bobby want to be on Cops? And what character are you on Cops? This is important. Let's stay on this. Hold to this
Hey,
beat.
I've never been arrested yet.
I like that you said yet. Okay.
I'm just playing.
Law officers. This is Bobby Peacock. Here is his address and phone number. Get a pen and paper open, ready to go if you would like to investigate.
No, I think like some like a car show. So I think it would be so dope to like there's a car show called like Gotham Garage. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's like a Netflix thing. Like think about like Pimp My Ride, West Coast Customs.
Oh, that was my jam.
Yeah, all of that was fake, by the way.
Don't ruin my childhood.
I'm just saying it was my teenage hood too, or middle school years or whatever. But anyways, yeah, they would literally get the cars, show them the cars, and then they would start taking stuff out of the car once the camera stopped rolling. Yeah.
No.
So West Coast Customs disassociated themselves from Pimp My Ride. So like my dream would be like, yo, I got a car. I want to do an episode where someone's customizing it for me, and then they bring it back to me and they do the whole reveal. So that would be like,
okay, but let's collaborate on this.
yeah.
What if we did The Amazing Race?
Have you seen me?
Sometimes you're driving, other times you might just have to
You run?
run. I was trying to find a nicer word for it, but like you're gonna have to run. And I
Yeah.
think you could speed walk.
You've been asking me to do the Murph for how many years?
Just 2 years. You still owe me Murph.
Yes, I still owe you Murph. Yeah.
And you have you kind of squirm away at that.
Every time, man.
You even brought a CrossFit coach onto your podcast,
Yep.
And-
Who you know?
and I was hoping at that point he'd be like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna offer you like 3 months free. You should just show up so you get done with Murph."
Yeah.
And he didn't. And I'm not a CrossFit coach. I am just an athlete and nothing more. Who's trying to be on Survivor? Who's going to be applying for season 30 or my 30th attempt soon?
Yeah.
So we've gone way too long.
We're fine. Anyways, okay. Seriously, last question. That was a great conversation. Where can people find you?
Oh man, I wish I could tell because I do have Instagram. I do
Yeah.
have Facebook. They're super lame.
Yeah,
like
for
there's
sure.
nothing cool. And like my student ministry, if you want to see what we do at Linwood Students, you can follow us on there. If you want to see what I'm doing, you're gonna just be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach McConnell.
Yeah.
Look it up, whatever.
Yeah.
if you're on Twitter, is it called Twitter or X now?
It's X, but people still call it Twitter.
Okay, one of those two.
Yeah.
I do have a Twitter account. I rarely use it. The only time I use it is to vent about Final Tribal Council at Survivor, and that's what America wants to hear about.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
need to hear, like, how do I feel as a Survivor fan about this? So if you want to know about those rants, you can join there. But outside of that, guys, I'm super boring. You should just follow. You should like and subscribe this. The Father Built podcast. This
Thank
is what
you.
you got to. If I'm going to plug in anything, it's this podcast.
Yeah.
There's going to be so much more solid content. I probably will not be invited back again.
Oh, for sure you will. We can talk about movies.
But you also, like, you have to fulfill my contract for my appearance fee for this, because you're paying me, right?
No.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm out. This is ridiculous.
All right. No, man. I'll get you lunch. All right.
Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for being in my corner, man.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, we kind of digressed at the end, but as part of being a man, part of fatherhood is just showing, like, our friendship, showing that, like, hey, we can have fun. Not everything has to be serious. And so, appreciate you coming on, Zach. And so thank you guys so much for watching the Father Built podcast, where we build up fathers in holiness, healthiness, happiness, and give them the tools to build their house, the legacy. This was Zach McConnell. I'm Bobby Peacock. Thank you guys so much for watching, and always remember, peace, love, blessings. We out.
See ya.
Bye, Felicia.